Before I start this short video, let me add that I am not a mental health professional, and I really think that when people are struggling, they really should seek help. However, if you found this video, it's because you're over 50 and maybe you're dealing with depression, anxiety, sadness. I will tell you what, I was in my 50s before I ever had a situation that I couldn't control on my own. And I think it's important as we look at how do you reinvent yourself out of your after 50? How do you keep going with your career into these later stages of your life? And how do you make age 50 to 75 the best years of your life? I think we have to get to a point where we can talk about such things. Now, I come from a generation where we didn't talk about these things. If people were struggling, my dad's advice, and I had a really good dad, but his advice would have been, suck it up, buttercup. And I went through a serious problem following the pandemic, the collapse of the business that I had had for 12 years, and my identity being wrapped up in who I am as a working professional, not necessarily who I am in my soul. And it got pretty bad. Now, in my case, it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but for me, it was the worst thing I had probably ever experienced when it came to emotions. And I didn't know how to deal with them. I had never dealt with a situation where I was dealing with legit depression. And I was quick to act. I started looking online for what do you do if you're having a mental crisis? How do you handle it? And there was a lot of advice out there, some of it from really smart people, and some of it from people who I probably shouldn't have been reading what they wrote. But there were three things that resonated with me. Number one was tell your spouse you're struggling. I wasn't sleeping about an hour or 2 hours a night. I was tossing and turning. I was getting up. My wife knew something was wrong. But by telling her, I was able to have that support. The second piece of advice was talk to friends who you know have been through struggles, either with themselves or someone in their family. Now, I was fortunate. I had some really good people in my life who had shared with me what they had gone through, and I was able to turn to them and tell them I'm in trouble, and they were able to be there to be part of my support. And then the third thing was seek professional help. Now, one of my friends told me, hey, it can take you 6 weeks to get an appointment with a therapist. And in many people's cases, it takes 2 to 3 appointments with therapists before you even decide, is this the right one? And some people have to go through 2 or 3 therapists. And he warned me it could take 6 months before I was in a position where I found the right person to talk to. And that frightened me because I wanted to solve this problem right away. But it turns out, no matter what, you're not going to solve the problem right away. When I did find the therapist, I got lucky. It did take 6 weeks to get that first appointment, or maybe 4, but I found the right person, and he's been a great resource for me. But he told me it was going to take 6 months to 2 years to really work through the problems. And again, I was one of these people who wanted to do it quickly. I wanted it to be over, and I wasn't able to get there. And sometimes maybe you have to go on antidepressant medication, and this scared the hell out of me. I felt like a failure that I had to do that. But I will tell you that I thought by the time I was pushing 60 years old, life was going to be easy, that I wasn't going to have these kinds of struggles, that my career would be figured out, my personal life would be figured out, finances would be figured out. And that wasn't entirely true. I was fortunate not everything totally collapsed, but working through problems is a real thing. And if you want to strive to make age 50 to 75 the best years of your life, sometimes things are going to pop up that are out of your control. And if it's a mental health issue, if it's depression, if it's anxiety, if it's anything like that, please go and find some people to support you. And please get some professional help as quickly as you can, because the sooner you get into a therapist and the sooner you admit, I can't do this alone, the sooner you're going to be able to learn the tools and techniques to be able to work through it. I am not trained to be able to give advice beyond that. So I really think you really need to get to somebody and find that help. I'm really glad I did. I'm proud that I did. And if you've watched my TEDx talk, I did that from TEDx Austin 2023. I talk about this whole situation, and I say, I am most proud to tell you that of all the things I've tried in my life, I'm most proud that when I needed to ask for help, I did that. And I want you to remember this: there is no shame in asking for help.